Well, joining us now is Kalista Zackhariyas. She's a thought-shaping catalyst and activator who hosts a new 12-part online series called Remembering Human that explores individual liberation and the betterment of humanity as a whole. Welcome to What She Said.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Kalista, that's a mouthful.
Yes.
First of all, what is a thought-shaping catalyst and activator?
Well, I find that often in society, we have been trained, it's almost like a programming that we have where we're always taught to rely on a source outside of ourselves for solutions, whether it be with policy, people, emotions, how we govern ourselves and our lives. So much of our power we surrender to external forces. If only my husband would do X, Y, and Z, my life would be this A, B, and C. We've become very reliant on, as a society, on looking for answers outside of ourselves. And the basis of my philosophy is rooted in the knowing that as human beings, we have everything we need already within us. And so what I try to do with the show is just help people remember that. So it's almost like an activation as opposed to teaching them something or saying, I'm going to go out there and fix you. I'm telling you that you're not broken at all. And you've got all the answers that you already need. I'm just going to help you remember it. How
did you come to this? You said you something changed 4 years ago.
I did. I actually had a very interesting childhood. I grew up homeless on and off the streets, and I was in and out of foster care a lot. And
where? What?
In Toronto.
In Toronto.
Mm-hmm. Okay, in Toronto. I'm Canadian originally, so I was very, very unwell mentally. Like I was very sad. I went through a lot of depression, and by the time I was 15, I was chronically suicidal. And it was a very difficult childhood that I had to work through. And I did all the seminars and the self-help books. I went to therapy. I tried the pharmaceuticals. And I found that oftentimes it either just numbed the pain or temporarily made me feel better in that moment. And throughout this whole process, I realized that I kept looking for answers outside of myself. And, the more I started meditation and the more I started doing different spiritual silent retreats and going within myself, there was a knowing that I started tapping into. And in that knowing that I've been able to get better, and I do believe that every human being has this knowing. I think we're all so wise and so beautifully full of life experiences and, the teachings from our parents and our ancestors and in history and culture, that there's so much that's already within us that we can tap into.
I'm sure that you're, having gone through this, you're not suggesting that people who are in serious trouble shouldn't maybe go to a therapist and at least start the journey that way.
Absolutely not. In fact, there's a lot of amazing thought leaders out there and self-help gurus and therapists. I do believe that all these people can help us, can guide us in gaining the information we need or the insight we need into a situation. But to actually turn that around, that has to come from within. There's nothing externally out there that the world can give us that we can utilize unless we make the decision to do that ourselves. And that switch is within us. It's not anywhere else.
So the mission of the series then is to take viewers on a journey of seeing truth, to reconnect their minds, body, and soul into what they intuitively yearn for, what they think they need. So let's talk a little bit about some of the topics that you cover, like remembrance for personal healing. What's that?
Well, it's interesting because in the spiritual world, we've been talking about remembrance for a long time, but I find that science is really catching up to that. Like there's a lot of scientific even advancements in epigenetics that's now showing that there's certain markers that come down for 4 generations and some for up to 14 generations, where, Holocaust survivors actually remember the trauma that their ancestors went through. There's some incredible studies out there, but what all these studies are lending to is letting you know that the trauma or the sometimes the emotions that we go through, whether it be depression or loneliness or sadness or fear, some of these things are not necessarily just from our lifetime, and some of these things could be passed down through to us. How do you heal what you don't know and can't see? So in terms of this whole journey, what I ask people to do is really go within and to sit with everything that comes up, as opposed to looking for a way to feel better in that moment. Allow it to come up and really feel it and sit with it, because it's in that the wisdom is actually in there.
We seem to have an epidemic of loneliness and people feeling disconnected these days. How does that play into what you're doing?
Well, I find that I use this word a lot. I call it alignment. I think that when you are in alignment, you feel very connected to the world and people around you. Mm-hmm. I find that sometimes we all go through trauma at varying degrees, depending on your walk of life. But oftentimes when we experience trauma, and I define trauma as anything that changes the way you react and respond to the world around you, when we go through these trauma, that creates an imprint and on our minds and bodies, and we decide to turn inwards. Instead of staying open with people, allowing that surrender, allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, communicating, this is where I am, I need this support, we turn into ourselves and we figure, some part of our brain says, I got this. I'm going to take care of this. I'll come back and I'll show the world. And we actually find a way to kind of create these walls and barriers around us. And we come back and face the world with this mask. I'm not hurting. I'm fine. I'm okay. I've got everything under control. And we put on all these masks, and that's where really our disconnection forms. I think we stop relying on each other because we've stopped kind of almost believing in each other that there are people that care, and we are really connected.
You also discuss the cause, concept, and impacts of judgment.
Yes. For a long time, I was the number one person that was really guilty of this. It was a lot of judgment, even towards my own husband. I would be like, why do you think this of me? Or why are you saying that? Or you should be like this. So there was always, I create that also creates disconnection, judgment, because I was always reliant on someone else to make me feel better. It was this person's fault. This is what was happening in my life that was creating this situation. But I realized that how at their mercy I was to feel better. They had to change their behavior in order for them to do something that made sense to my mind, and then that would make me feel better. It was a game changer in my life when I realized that, it's really none of my business what someone thinks of me. And I can't be reliant on what my husband says to feel good. I just have to, or whether it be my husband or whoever, society, media, I just have to have a knowing that I'm okay and stand tall with who I am, whatever that may look like, good, bad, or ugly. And that made me feel a lot better.
Well, the series already has more than 500,000 views.
It has.
So people are watching. What are you hoping they're taking away from it?
I hope they're taking away that you're perfectly enough. There are lots of people in this world that are walking the same path as you. You're really not alone. And you can reach out to the world for all the support that you need, but ultimately you are the resource to your happiness. And that really has to come with everyday simple choices. I don't think we can overthink this. I think it's something that can be very overwhelming to people. So just remember that just focus on your every next decision.
So each episode has a weekly call to action? Yeah.
So give us one for today.
Whatever you want, there's nothing that you can gain from this world that you don't have within you. Whether it be love, that career you want, happiness, create that within yourself and you'll attract it, because all we are is energy, and everything you emit, you attract. So put out some great stuff. Just love one another. Try to stay as open as you can. Keep it real, and that's exactly what you're going to get back.
Where do people go to watch? How do they watch?
Well, right now I'm exclusively on Facebook. We will be on YouTube and in a podcast very soon, but we're on Kalista Becoming. It's all my social handles on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook are at Kalista Becoming, and that's where you'll find the show on Facebook.
So it's 12 episodes?
It is. It's a 12-part series.
12-part series, and are you going to add to that?
We are planning already a season 2.
Oh.
And it's a very, very thought-provoking. Okay, so Kalista Becoming, the series is called Remembering Human.
And Kalista, Kalista.
Yes, and becoming. Because I'm always becoming. I'm never ever going to be there.
And season 2 would be?
Season 2 is just in development right now, so we don't have a release date as of yet, but we're just planning it out and doing all the scripting.
Awesome.
Good.
Well, Kalista Zackhariyas, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real honor.
Well,